Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Rich Munroe. Rich, you want to give everyone a bit of a background to yourself so they get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. Thanks so much for inviting me to the podcast. Excited to be here. Rich Munroe, real estate investor. My wife and I have been investing in real estate for a little over 20 years. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia, in a suburb of Atlanta called Buford, up on Lake Lanier. And we started out with tax lien investing. And so we bought about 350 properties, mostly in Georgia, but also in Maryland. And really, that's kind of, we broke our teeth on real estate. Kind of saw the worst case scenario of properties that needed, rehabs from being vacant for 2 and 3 years, and sold most of those properties to other investors. We did keep some of those and started generating, like most investors, kind of the long-term rental portfolio with the idea of having that passive income. We looked at, starting to build that. We probably had 7 or 8 properties and growing, and really got burnt out very quickly from, evicting people right before the holidays. Having to rehab the property again, looking at the numbers and not really making a whole lot of money there. And so it was about 8.5, 9 years ago, we looked at the short-term rental model, and it was like a light bulb moment for me. You're making 2 to 3 times the revenue compared to a long-term rental. Properties stay in much better shape. And we were able to build a scalable model that allowed us to, not hire a bunch of people to run this. We self-manage everything. A lot of it's done with contractors and outsourced, and we have built a portfolio up to about 75 properties in Georgia. We're also in the Tampa, Florida market. We're starting to expand into the Caribbean as well. And so, we also help other investors kind of, learn the same thing we did. A quick way to jump into this as an investor is doing the master lease strategy, or what's called rental arbitrage, where you can basically take control of properties, whether they're multifamily or single family homes, and essentially you're playing the arbitrage between your monthly expenses and what you can do after you've staged and set up the property for short-term rental revenue. And then we also manage properties for other investors. We have various different investment funds that we go do acquisitions for and end up short-term renting them. And so we also do coaching and consulting. And so we help new investors, not necessarily just in Georgia, but across the United States, that want to learn how to do the same thing we've done, build a scalable model, grow a portfolio of short-term rentals, and be able to manage it remotely, and basically maximize your revenue through doing short-term rentals. And so that's kind of our core focus. That's all we do. We also do a weekly podcast or Facebook Live, and I typically interview other short-term rental operators that are very experienced and have a lot of units. But we kind of rewind and we back up and we talk about their story. How did they get started? What was involved? What did they experience? And we kind of help other investors get a good understanding of the space and in this market as well. We also talk to different service providers. We had the chief economist of AirBNB, who is a platform that does a lot of the historical analytics for short-term rentals, that we did an interview with, that kind of did a good breakdown and summary of what's going on in the short-term rental market and from a statistical basis. And so, it's very informative. And so I know I'm just rambling on here.
Oh, no, it's good. It's good. So, what attracted me to Rich and how I found Rich was I saw a post online, and he was doing container homes as short-term rentals. Maybe let's look, because I know that's what's really piqued my interest. Because everyone loves short-term rentals, and anytime you can have a little bit of a spin on it, or even depending on what market you're in, like even parts of Georgia, Tampa, it could be, depending where you are, it'll be a little bit more expensive. So shipping containers are gonna bring that price down, especially if you can pop it on some land. Or I'm not sure how your whole strategy works with that, but maybe tell me a little bit about that, how you do shipping containers with short-term rentals. And I don't know, I'm wondering if there's any snags or anything that's tricky with them compared to a regular rental house.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so this was actually one of our Facebook Lives that we did recently. I'm happy to send it out as well if folks are interested in checking it out. I basically interviewed a friend of mine. His name is Michael Hicks. and he's based up in Northwest Georgia in the mountains, kind of bordering Tennessee and Georgia. And he has probably 8 or 9 different themed properties that he does short-term rentals with. Some of them are most of them are container homes, but he also does tree houses and A-frames.
Yeah.
A-frame properties that are kind of usually on a lake. And so he's got properties in the Blue Ridge Mountains, over on the East Coast in Savannah, Tybee Island, for example. And so a lot of times what he does is he gets the land, acquires the land, and seeks it out to be somewhat destination amenity oriented. The ones he started with are actually 3 container homes on Lookout Mountain that are on one kind of a subdivided plot of land. The view is phenomenal of off the mountain. And he basically started with the first container home, bought the container for, I think it was around 12 to 15,000, and had it sitting in the driveway of his office for several months as they kind of equipped it. It's not much different than new construction. You have to do your foundation first, obviously, tie in your water and your electricity. And then you physically get the container delivered there once you have it cut out and spec'd out for the windows and the doors.
So with $12,000 to $15,000 container, does that come with anything in it, or are you talking just the base of that, or just
that's just the basic container, right? Okay. And then you have to get it equipped and construct it so that it can be converted into a livable dwelling, essentially. And that's typically done on site once you've kind of put it on top of the foundation.
Oh, you do that after? I was thinking you'd get that all set up and then lift it onto the spot.
No, they typically do it after, because you've got to bake in the electrical, you've got to do the sheetrock, you've got to get it all done. So it's typically done on site. Yeah. So the main thing they do ahead of time is just cut out the main areas that you need to cut out of the container home.
Oh, that's cool. The picture I saw, that I think is one you're talking about, where it's like overlooking like a valley or something, and they taken like and built a cinder block foundation. They just dug right on the edge. It almost like it's hanging right off the edge of the hill or whatever it is, right?
Right. And then, once you've put it there, you can essentially, spec out for your outdoor patio porch areas. You can put hot tubs out there, things of that nature, and a lot of what Airbnb, the Airbnb platform has done over the last couple of years, literally probably the last year and a half, is they've kind of shifted their focus since COVID, recognizing that a lot of people can travel freely. They're not necessarily concerned about where they're going, but it's more about the experience and the type of experience they want to encounter. So they did a major overhaul last year on their search engine, so that instead of you going to their main page and searching for a location, you're basically able to search categories, right? So you can go look at all the treehouse options in the Southeast or in the States. You can look at all the lake houses, mountain houses, beach houses, tree houses, so you can kind of search by category. And what typically tends to happen is folks are going to pay a premium for that experience. So a tiny home or a container home like we're talking about is typically going to command anywhere from $250 to $300 a night. Even though it's a very small square footage footprint, you're going to sleep 2 people typically. But it's all about that experience that you're kind of ramping up for. And, all in the cost, obviously you've got to buy the land, you've got to do the construction, you've got to stage the property much like you would ordinarily. And so all in, you're probably at around 80 to 90,000 as an expense to get everything set up. And then your revenue potential, is definitely, in that.
Those are great numbers, right? Because you're
right
for $250 per day. Because a lot of people are going to get $250 per day, but they're buying like a $300,000 house, right? Where you're talking 90 plus some land, right? So
yes,
you mentioned like experience homes, like different kinds of experiences to enjoy. You manage a whole bunch of properties. What kind of experience homes do you have? Like different ideas or different things that you manage? Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I've created a new coaching program. I believe the new coaching program has way more value than any of the programs that have even existed in the past. What we've done is pre-recorded all the lessons so that you can work through it at your own pace, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to meet up on a regular basis
to answer the questions, do deal analysis, and actually spend our time together working on things instead of spending our time learning things. I think this will make a seamless transition to buying in the United States and will help you solve a lot of your problems. If this is of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com/coaching. I hope to help you guys invest in the United States, and I hope we provide as much value as possible. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, no, sure. So we have a 15-acre horse farm in North Georgia in Gainesville, kind of probably 50 minutes from the Atlanta airport.
Yeah.
That has a horse stable with 10 horses, a swimming pool, fire pit, 5-bedroom home. And the house kind of sits on a mountain and it overlooks the pasture. And so you can kind of chill out on the front patio, watch the horses frolicking in the field. You can also do horse lessons and things like that. So that's one of our kind of featured properties that is a little bit unique. We're also looking at doing luxury tents. Luxury tents are very similar to the container home as far as a cost basis goes, as well as very similar to the revenue you can command because it's all about the experience. And when I say luxury tents, people kind of look at me cross-eyed. It's not like the camping used to do as a kid, as a Cub Scout or as a Girl Scout. These are typically, kind of like how they have in Africa, where they have the high-end, hunting expeditions, and they have these high-end luxury. So these are tents that are equipped with full kitchens, full bathrooms, and outdoor seating and stuff like that you can also kind of command a premium for.
Just a question about that place with the horses. Like, so if somebody was to rent that, is their goal to like just watch the horses, or is their goal to go ride the horses? Like, what?
A combination. Some folks just like the environment and just like to have that as a view.
Yeah.
when they're looking off the front porch, and others want to, their kids want to take horse riding lessons and things like that. They have ponies as well as horses. And so it's a combination of the two for sure.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like, so the people who, I'm assuming you're the property manager, the manager for that short-term rental in that one, or is that one your own?
Yeah, that's one that we manage.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. But the people who actually own it, do they live there and probably manage the farm? And it's just sort of, they've used they found a second location to build like a secondary home or building to view this, or how does that kind of work for them?
Yeah, most of our clients are like us, investors, and they're trying to maximize revenue. So this was an investment property that we are engaged with this investor. So they have multiple properties that they seek out properties that have large tracts of land. And it's actually quite interesting. So they'll do a rehab or a remodel on a home that's existing on 10, 15 acres. And then they'll do short-term rental to generate revenue for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and then they'll subdivide it and develop it as a subdivision later, as a part of the exit. And so we have multiple properties that are like that has that as the kind of the end game, the investment strategy to kind of basically liquidate later as a developed subdivision.
It's cool. That's a good idea. It's kind of like I was down in Kentucky in August, and there was like a road, and there was like basically a ravine, and there wasn't much room for anyone to actually build a real house. They built like these little cabins where you could look over the ravine, but it was like all that you could really fit there. And they managed to get, it has plumbing and everything else in it, and it still was, I don't know, probably 1,200 square feet or something like that for the place. But I was like, I thought that's cool. Like, and they didn't have to start with like all of those. They could build one and then build another one later on, build another one down that road. And it's an interesting idea, just because there's a lot of people that are interested in investing in land, and this seems to be like you're investing in land level 2, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Another option or another strategy that we have is lake homes or lake properties.
Oh, nice.
Do quite well from a return on investment standpoint. And so being investors and rehabbers, we actually buy properties distressed. We recently did a project in Flowery Branch on Lake Lanier in Georgia, not too far from where we're based, and it was an $800,000 acquisition. We put $200,000 into a full gut rehab, opened up floor plans, and then we put about $35,000 in furnishings and staging in it. It's actually on the lake with a view, with a private dock. And it just happens to be down the street from where they filmed the Netflix series Ozark. And so if you're familiar with that, the Bird family home is like literally, half a block away from this property. And so a lot of people don't realize they filmed Ozarks in Georgia on Lake Lanier.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah,
It's
they've done, the film industry has done some good incentives to draw a lot of folks to film stuff here, and they usually try to do as many as they can, up until now with the writer's strike. But anyway, so all in, we're at about $1 million as our purchase. The after repair value, or the appraised value after we finish the rehab, was about 1.5 million. And so we've, instantly got that as equity. And then we're going to do about 30,000 per month in gross rental revenue on that. And so that works out to be about a 22% return on investment. And so even though, obviously these are bigger numbers than paying 150 grand to set up a luxury 10 or a container home, but it's got, similar, high returns as far as part of the investment.
That's cool. Yeah. With if you're around like a location like that, can you put that in your advertising on Airbnb, or do you just have to put it kind of in like your guest book, or what do you do with that information?
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. Yeah, we have it in our guest book, we have it in our guidebook, we have it in our description on the listing on Airbnb, for sure. I mean, that's a part of the draw to have folks come in.
That's awesome. I was just wondering, like, even just to have it in the listing, the house from the Ozarks TV show is right next door or down the road. And, like, can you say that? I guess you can, right? I don't know why I thought you might not have an issue, but awesome. So yeah, what does it look like in the future for you guys? What are you guys working on? Is it mostly like, managing the rehabs, mostly managing the actual reservations, getting some more for yourself? What are you working on right now?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I got burnt out from rehabs. We used to do about 8 or 9 rehabs a year, and it just became a job.
It is.
It just became a job, right? Managing the contractors. And so so that the one we just did on Flowery Branch, we probably only do 1 or 2 rehabs now a year when we actually do it for short-term rentals for ourselves. And so we're not doing as many. So our main core focus right now is expanding into other markets, partnering with investors, usually mostly investment funds strategically. We're looking at the Charlotte, North Carolina market. We're looking at Nashville, Tennessee. We're already in Tampa, Florida, so we're going to expand into St. Petersburg and Sarasota. And then we're also looking at the East Coast of Florida as well. Kissimmee still does pretty good near Disney. So we're looking at some investments there. And then we're also kind of a little bit longer term. I'm originally from the Caribbean. I was born in Guyana, grew up in Jamaica. My wife's from Trinidad. And so we have a lot of connections to the Caribbean. So we already have a property in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And so we're looking at potentially doing some of these theme type properties, luxury tents and such at some resorts in the Caribbean as well.
So for these projects, are you planning on doing the master lease or the arbitrage sort of method to them? Or are you buying these properties? I guess it depends if you're renting them or not, but how does that kind of play out and look like?
Yeah, no. So we definitely have done quite a bit of the master lease strategy. It's worked well, competitively with, usually it's a mid-size multifamily building. We've had a 30-unit building, for example, where we started out with 4 units as short-term rentals, and the owner investor recognized the benefit of the property staying in much better shape, less complaints, less issues with tenants. And so over the period of about 12 months, we converted the entire building over to doing short-term rentals. They're all 1-bedroom, 1-bath units. And so essentially that becomes kind of a boutique hotel type situation where it's, all short-term rentals. And so when you have an owner of a multifamily building that we usually partner with, they're starting to do their refinances, or they've just recently remodeled the property. Layering in the master lease strategy with the short-term rental revenue is definitely something that makes them a lot competitive, and being able to, some of the lenders are starting to recognize a lot of the revenue now as well over long-term rental. So that becomes a good play.
Yeah, for a lot of them too, it makes a lot of sense. You just get it's nice solid rent, and you can see the condition of the properties kept up. Although those perks you were saying right off the start, and it's good to even diversify, because say, COVID we went through, and it changed some things, but things bounced back. But for instance, even like hurricanes, right? They go through and destroyed like Fort Myers and that area down there last year. And you go, what they need is those short-term rentals for all the contractors, right? So they don't
Right.
necessarily want a beach home, even though there's tons of beach homes and that kind of stuff down in that area. It may make
Yeah.
a lot more sense to have like apartment building to stay at, right? Because they just need somewhere to stay while they're working.
Right. Well, and I want to point out as well, I know we've talked a lot about the different categories, but we do well in Tampa, Florida, for example, where they're just regular 3, 4, 5, 6 bedroom houses, 30 minutes from any beach. And we do 70-80% occupancy and keep them booked because for all those reasons. You have workers coming in, you have other reasons that folks are staying in short-term rentals. One of the kind of the recent peaks is when you start looking at the short-term rental model as an investor, and then we did this at the beginning, you're thinking, I should do probably 1-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom apartments, that's similar to a hotel, that they should do well. But what's happened in the marketplace, a lot of the travelers, business travelers, corporate travelers, families traveling, they recognize the economic benefit of getting a 4 and 5-bedroom home and paying $300-400 a night compared to getting 3 or 4 different hotel rooms for 3 or 4 times that cost. And so what tends to happen in most markets, and Tampa included, as a percentage of the short-term rentals available, there's not that many 4 and 5-bedroom homes, and so there's a limited supply for them and a high demand. And so as a result of that, they stay pretty busy, and is a nice lucrative way to convert some of your long-term rentals over to the short-term rental strategy on some of the larger homes.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense. Just to be, anytime you're a little bit more niche or a little bit different than everybody else, it stands out, right? My podcast, it's a little bit more direct. A lot of people have podcasts on investing. Just doing that, I had some a little bit different, but I had long-term rental. You get a 5-bedroom, even long-term rental. Those don't exist. There's some people with large families, and they're used to having several kids packed into the same room, right? Anything even for me, I like to go travel and go, I don't know all the places I wouldn't travel, but we a lot of times we'll find a short-term rental that can put a bunch of families in. We have a kitchen, we'll have a place that's sort of central. Compared to even like a resort or even a hotel, we can if we have young kids, they can go to bed and we can still hang out there. If you're at like a hotel or apartment, you're all on different sides of the building, you're nowhere near each other, you're like, okay, I guess I'm going to bed at 9:30 tonight. This is awesome.
You got the convenience of a full kitchen, full living room area to hang out in. So yeah, there's definitely obvious benefits to it for sure.
Awesome. Rich, really, this was a ton of information. I really liked it. People they're interested in getting having you manage a short-term rental, or just some interest in learning about how you do this or anything else, or learning about your academy or the 3 million other things that you did.
No, I'll tell you that. There's one last thing just to kind of update everybody that's watching, and then I'll kind of throw in how to get in touch with me. So
sure.
The elephant in the room that a lot of people need to recognize even before you start thinking about investing in short-term rentals is the regulatory environment is very intense. And it's a moving target. Most major cities across the United States have restrictions of some sort, typically anchored on the primary residency. In other words, you have to have a primary resident in that city in order to do short-term rentals. Don't forget, Airbnb kind of started with the home sharing model. And so anytime there's a rumbling of a ban of short-term rentals, and this happened fairly recently in Atlanta a few years ago, the Airbnb model answer to it is, well, we'd like to keep primary resident folks that want to supplement their income. And that's what they usually push. And so I formed a nonprofit here in Atlanta to fight that legislation. We're actually pretty close to being successful with them rewriting it and not requiring you to be a primary resident, and putting more of a global cap in there and actually putting in grandfathering rules and rights. So I only mention that because, as you're figuring out what target market you want to look at, that's the very first thing you want to understand is what is the regulatory environment there? Have they already decided the rules, or are they still up in the air. And then that way you know where to invest, where to stay away from. There are some counties and cities that have defined the rules that are quite reasonable. They recognize the benefit of the tax revenue. And so, we tend to obviously try to navigate to some of those areas where you can invest aggressively when you know kind of what the regulatory environment looks like. So I wanted to mention that.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of things, some things that people don't even realize when they're purchasing homes that, you mentioned Kissimmee earlier, like there's parts of that you can't do short-term rentals, right?
Right. And like Orlando is one of those strictly, you not only do they require you to have a primary resident to do it legally, but you also have to physically be in the home when you're hosting guests.
Yeah.
So how do you make a scalable business out of that? You just can't, right? And so as a result of that, Kissimmee has 17,000 listings that support a lot of that, travel volume that comes in for Disney.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so I like Glenn was saying, I do have a Facebook group that we encourage new investors that want to learn about short-term rentals to join. It's called B&B Investing Group on Facebook. And just in case you don't find it, I can give you a number. If you text B&B to this number, I'll actually send you a link automatically to join. Yeah. It's 205-596 7801. So 205-596-7801. The best way to get a hold of me is through Facebook Messenger. And so if you join my group, start checking out the Facebook Lives. I actually have the container home one in the featured section of the group this week, so that folks can kind of dive into that are interested in learning more about container homes. And then, like I said, we do a different one every week. So we'd love you guys to jump in and kind of join, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks for coming on, Rich. Tons of value for everybody.
Good. I'm glad. I was happy to participate. Thanks for inviting me, Glenn. Really appreciate it.
That was a nice video. Bye.